The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame. Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Reagan Kelly, and I am joined this week by my two very cool co-hosts,
Nate Heininger
and Shane Kelly.
And this week we are talking about first-person platforming slice-em-up cyberpunk action game Ghostrunner. That was my best attempt at describing it. How's that? How did that work for you guys?
That was great. You know, I've been sitting here thinking, like, you know, with this show and just sort of the medium and the types of games that we cover, we spend a lot of time talking about, like, narrative and character choices and all the things that kind of get wrapped into the indie game scene that we tend to cover. And I love that. That's really mostly what we're here for and what we really enjoy. But every once in a while, it is so nice to get a game like this that is just so intense and extreme and just stupid fun. I'm really glad that we covered this game.
Yeah, sometimes it's very important that the Ghostrunner enter the cyber void to defend the architect from the Keymaster.
Yeah, I didn't play Cyberpunk 2077. I intend to at some point, but I kind of feel like, regardless of how that game is, this game is the most cyberpunk game that's ever been made. It's ridiculous.
You know, for my sins, I haven't completed Cyberpunk 2077, but I agree with you. This is more cyberpunk than that. This is the most cyberpunk thing I've played in a long, long time. So I want to set up a couple quick things before we dig into Ghostrunner. One is that this got shuffled in our order a little bit, so we got to spend a little less time with it than we otherwise would have. And this game, everything that I read about it said that it was a short game, and ladies and gentlemen, it's a little longer than we thought. Or we're all just really, really bad at it. So I believe
I fucking rule at this game.
Yeah,
I'm like 10 minutes. I'm like 10 minutes from the end of this game.
Amazing.
As we play now, and I have spent.
You, Shane,
I'd have to check my Steam clock on it, but I think I have spent about 10, maybe a couple more hours with it.
But even that is a good signal, though, because you're saying you're really good at it, and you're at like 10 or 12 hours, and then Reagan and I, who are saying we're not good at it, I think this game will take me 25 hours to complete.
Yeah, I have played, I'm pretty sure that according to the Epic Game Store clock thing, I don't know how accurate it is, I'm at about 10 hours. And I am there are 17 chapters in the game, and I'm pretty sure I'm on chapter 10, if I recall correctly. So, like, I'm a good length of the way into the game. If you have played this, I've played through like one or two of the levels that happen when you first get to Dharma City. So that's where I'm at with it. I have not gotten to like final boss territory or anything like that, but I'm enjoying the game so much that I definitely wanted to talk about it. And for schedule reasons, we couldn't delay any further. So here we are. But honestly, I'm not sure there's any like.
How many hours have you put in?
Oh yeah, me. I think like 9.5.
Yeah. Sounds right.
Yeah. Right around 10 hours, which is where we tend to cap out. We don't really talk that much about like our game criteria on the show. I think it's pretty evident right there in the name of the podcast. But to us, a short game is something that we can finish in about 10 hours of playtime. We're starting to get a little tighter on this, I think, or at least we're really trying to be a lot tighter on this because, well, first, there are a lot more short runtime games being published today. There's a lot more diversity in terms of that. And then the second thing that impacts that is just we have continuously gotten busier as we've grown old and withered into skeletons during the production of this podcast.
Yeah, so. I was going to explain that this show began in 14 or 15 when
14.
there were 0 children among us. 0 babies between all of us on this podcast, and now there are 4 babies.
Yeah, and
the way you phrase that makes it sound like we have all become babies. And
Also
there
true.
are 0 babies among us, and now there
Now
are 4 babies.
babies all the way down.
Now we are all baby.
I have become baby, destroyer of time.
It's funny. What you're talking about, Shane, it's funny because I'm often on this show the one who's like, yeah, let's do these like unlimited run games, these like really hard games that take mastery. That's something I really, really like. But I also tend to seek out ones that live in, or I'm realizing from this game that I think I've been seeking out the ones that live in the skill sets that I have. So like platformers. I love platformers. Give me a grueling, difficult platformer, and I'm going to burn my way through it. Turn-based strategy game. Give me the hardest one you've got. I'll die a million times figuring it out. Let me play it. Let's talk about it on the show. I am not good at first-person games. That is something that I'm really not good at. So now I know how it feels.
You know, I kind of knew that, Nate, but I'm sort of surprised when I put this on the list. I thought like, this will be a Nate game. But
and maybe, so I should say maybe it's just I haven't had the time to really like, you know, like turn my brain into it, because I'm really, really enjoying this game. But because it's triggering that, like, yes, this is hard. I'll die 1,000 times. I died 100 times in the first chapter.
Yeah,
and,
same.
And so, like, I expect that I would get into it, but I'm normally coming into these other, like, you know, you're going to die 1,000 times, at least at, like, what I consider to be skilled. And then I'm mastering. I'm coming in, like, I am bad, and I have to die a lot. So I feel more connected to you guys than I've ever felt whenever I'm like, yeah, let's do, you know, this Slay the Spire or whatever, which I know you all got really, really into, but that is like, I'm still playing that game. I loved it so much, you know?
Yeah, you've just like completely obliterated Celeste and like gone through like levels of that game that I swear, never even contemplate seeing. So yeah, like I know you can do this stuff, but
every time I get on my computer, Nate, I see you still logging into and playing Into the Breach, which is how I know you're a
it's
true
a good game.
There.
That's my wheelhouse, and so I'm glad to tackle one of these games that are hard, but in a genre that I don't like feel comfortable in. And I will say, like, with that said, like, this game was so much fun. And I felt bad. I felt sloppy. I felt like I could not get a handle of the controls, but it never felt like it was the game's fault. You know,
I gotta say
and
too, like I went into it feeling that way, but like by a halfway through this game, like yes, I was still dying a lot, but like that feeling dried up, and I was like, wow, this is reawakening skills I haven't like touched in years. So I want to explain a little more about what Ghostrunner is, because we haven't gotten there yet. Ghostrunner, I mentioned it's a first-person game. This is a I won't sidetrack here too much, but it's a very, very pretty, in my opinion, graphics-wise, like very high-end looking for what I believe an indie game from a Polish
it's a
developer.
great-looking game.
A first-person game set in a cyberpunk dystopia where all of humanity has moved into one gigantic megastructure, a massive tower that is sort of its own city, where the bottom dwellers live in the lower levels, and as you ascend upwards, it's the upper classes live atop this like tower of wealth, etc.
Yeah, sorry. Just the scene where they like dump all of that on you, like they're like, I'm a floating mind who's been put into this computer space, and I'm going to tell you all about this tower of the remaining humans. I'm like, yes, put this straight into my veins. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. I think it was
it's extremely Snowpiercer to me.
It is.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it's definitely got that kind of vibe. But like, fortunately, it mostly doles out that lore while you're slicing things. It almost never stops you moving in this game. So that's really the nature of this game. This game is all about moving fast and slicing dudes with a sword. When I first saw this game, I first related it to a game that also it was part of why I thought, Nate, you would dig this game. We played Katana Zero for the show, which was also sort of vaguely cyberpunk and about like very fast movement, and all of the other dudes have guns, but you only have a sword and die with one hit. And that's really what Ghostrunner is all about. You are moving through these three-dimensional rooms, almost arenas, but they're pretty complex. And usually they'll be, between one and like a half a dozen gun-toting dudes who are just sort of standing around waiting for you. And as soon as you move into view, if you aren't moving in very fast and specific ways, they will get a beat on you and shoot you dead instantaneously. These guys
One
have
shot.
good aim for video game enemies, like incredible aim for video game guys. And so this is a game all about just like trying to find routes through complex 3D spaces and using a bunch of mobility tools. We'll talk about some of those in a little bit to very quickly sword to death a bunch of gunmen. Basically.
Yeah, I have to imagine that there's something in the enemy AI that if you are not moving at a certain speed or like on a wall, if they fire, you're dead. Like, because you have a chance to potentially counteract the bullets, which is a whole other topic. But like, if you're not actively moving quickly at like full speed, any shot is going to kill you. So you have to be going.
The other side of this is that it's because it's sort of a one-hit kill game. It's really designed around fast restarts. So this reminded me a lot of games like Celeste, or I think Katana Zero was like this as well, or like even things like Super Meat Boy were brought to mind. This is all about like presenting you with these challenges that seem almost completely unsurmountable. These like bizarre situations where you are going to get one hit killed if you move in any but one particular direction and speed. But you have to very quickly sort of assess those situations and then execute on very sustained, perfect execution for sometimes maybe as much as a minute or two. But dying just means resetting instantaneously back to the beginning and trying again.
Yeah. This is the best I've seen for a game of this visual quality as far as time to reset. There is no load time. It does say you have died or whatever, and you have to press triangle. But if you can time it to where you kind of start to know like how long it's going to be after you die before that little hit triangle to continue pops back up, the fastest you can hit triangle, you're right at the beginning. There is zero load, so you can even get it down like. I was getting to the point where like I know exactly when I've died right here so many times. I know exactly like
I played this on PC, and I don't know if this option is there on consoles. I assume it probably is, but you can also turn on an option called like instant restarts, where you hit that. In my case, it was the Y button on my controller. I think Shane played this on keyboard and mouse, which is also possible. But you hit that one button, and regardless of whether you're alive or dead, or in the middle of the air, or falling, or whatever, it instantly restarts you. And we're talking about like frame perfect, no transition, blink, and you're back at the beginning. And I found that extremely useful because like, like, okay, there's this particular jump I'm having trouble with, right? Or this particular like angle I need to make. And if I miss that jump, I don't want to have to bother waiting for myself to like fall into the acid or whatever.
There's a lot of falling.
Yeah. A lot of. Yeah. So
the only problem in this game comes from when that moment is after you have perfectly killed the same 5 guys. Like over and over and over and over again. The checkpointing, since we're talking about it, is really, really good. Like it chooses good points for you to checkpoint. Almost every time when I was starting up from a checkpoint, it drops you into a place where you can begin like gaining momentum and start moving and start acting instantly. Never like waiting for a platform to move into place. Never anything like that's almost the whole way through the game. I will hang one little piece of shame on this game for the checkpointing, though, which is there's one point in the cyber void where you have to like go back and forth across like a bridge that's like made out of rotating cyber void BS and collect like 13 little orbs. And the checkpoint will grab you in the middle. So if you missed some of these orbs, like now you're trying to traverse this terribly annoying rotating bridge in both directions, and it wastes your time. So I guess piece of advice: when you get to a rotating cyber void bridge, get all the orbs before proceeding.
Good to know. Good to know. The other thing that probably is worth mentioning about the gameplay here is that obviously, like the meat of this game are these like little, very, very tightly designed combat challenges, right? Where it's really testing you on something specific and requiring you to like restart it a bunch of times to make it. But the game also has a lot of first-person platforming, sometimes without guns being fired at you. That is also, I thought, really good. Like there were times in this game where it's like, oh wow, that's like a really cool little like platforming challenge where I have to, wall run. Did I mention wall running? This game has the best wall
We haven't
running.
talked about. Yeah, we haven't talked about really the core mechanic. I have to talk about
that for a second. This is the key to this game. But it's also kind of a hilarious trope to me. There are two things that are inextricably linked in the mind of all gamers, and that is cyber ninjas and wall running. Like in this game, this is the game for you if you play Genji in Overwatch, or if you like the cyber ninjas in like Metal Gear or Warframe, or I mean, there's so many cyber ninjas that are out there.
I think the best touch point for this is probably, I mean, not the cyber ninja part necessarily, although that's kind of there, but like Titanfall. If you guys played Titanfall 2, which we've talked about doing on the show here several times, but never gotten around to, I wasn't that warm on Titanfall 2. But I did love the wall running, and the wall running here is as good, if not better, than the wall running in Titanfall 2.
I loved Titanfall 2. I was a big fan of it. The wall running in that game is chunkier, if that makes sense. Which makes sense because you're a gigantic mech. This game it's fast. It's faster than the wall running of Titanfall.
Well, the out of the mech Titanfall wall running. It reminded me a lot of this, although I think that had a more limited, like you could only run on the walls for a certain period of time before like gravity caught up with you or something like that. And this, I assume, because he's a cyber ninja with like super implants and a techno sword, he can just run on walls forever. Like literally as long as you can find a wall to run on, you can run on it.
You have a little bit of an arc to your run, so it feels like you can kind of catch it at just the right angle. But super important to this game, just as important as the wall running, is the what I think is probably the most innovative. I don't know if innovative is the right word here, but it's the most satisfying little add-on to your movement kit, which is the dash, and the little trick that they do with the dash in allowing you to hold down the dash button. A lot of games like this will have a dash button. What cyber ninja would be without their inhuman speed? But in this one, you on the keyboard, it's the shift key. You dash with that, but if you hold it rather than tapping it, instead of dashing, it does a time slow, and then you can like dodge and dash, or you can use it to make to kind of loosen up the timing on any of the other abilities, like the parry abilities and things like that. But you can only do that time stop if you're in midair. So the combination of like that really flexible ability bound to one key, and the wall running, and the pretty generous jump that you get, means that you spend probably the majority of this game with your feet off the ground, which is really cool. It's the game has an incredible kind of platformer feel and design to it. So you're constantly in motion, you're constantly moving, you're constantly managing line of sight, and you get this incredible speed going. And that really plays in with the level design, because I'm actually quite excited to talk about the level design in this game. I think there's a lot to go on there.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, like, about that speed, like, this game is all about sort of preserving your momentum. It's about creating momentum by finding, like, stretches of wall to run on or what have you, and trying to preserve that momentum so that you can, when you're approaching like an encounter with an enemy who's going to try and get a beat on you and shoot, you want to be moving usually like orthogonal to them so that they're not able to like just completely train on you, and you want to be moving fast enough that they can't get that like firing solution, right? And the momentum of this made this game feel like Sonic the Hedgehog for me.
Yeah.
It's like Sonic with a cyber sword. It's an incredible feeling when you're doing well at this game. And when you're not doing well at this game, restart and you're going to give it another try really fast.
Yeah.
It's so beautifully fast.
So yeah, and one of my favorite things too is that like you get going so fast, which does give you an advantage over the enemies. So that if you're going fast enough, they might not be able to shoot you super quickly. They'll get you if you don't get them quick enough. But there was so many times where I'd like overshoot where I'm trying to land because I'm going too fast, and like I just jump completely over the guy that I was trying to kill, so I have to whip around and try to get him before he gets me. There's this sort of element of chaos that I think like I best have experienced in like stealth games that do stealth right. Like I was thinking of Dishonored, where you'll be like, all right, here's what I'm gonna do. It's an opposite tempo to this game, but you're like, I have a plan and I'm going to execute it and it's going to be awesome. But what actually happens is I run at a wall, I hit the wrong button, so I slide, but then I quickly remember and I jump and I wall run, but I jump too high, so I go over top of the guy, land behind him, have to turn around and then slice him in half. And at the end, still the same result. I got the guy, but it was way more chaotic and way more like loose and slippery feeling than I wanted. Now, of course, I'm probably going to die like 3 seconds later to something else. And when I finally beat the level, I will probably hit those first guys. Like you kind of get down to a rhythm where you build up like muscle memory through the level, but still that sort of chaos when you like succeed, but it's not the way you wanted to succeed, is a lot of fun. And I think a hard balance to pull off in a lot of these games. While you were talking about comparing games, just a couple other quick thoughts. I did think about Destiny as far as the first-person platforming goes. Destiny had some really good first-person platforming.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought this also had... Maybe it's just the vibe of it. And then also Mirror's Edge. Did either of you guys play that game?
Yeah, that's definitely a touch point here. Because like Mirror's Edge is all about the sort of like fluid motion and just it's just like you press a button and you immediately stick to a wall kind of thing. Yeah. And this just has that for sure. Shane, tell me about what you were talking about the level design, because I agree this has like some really, really tight little like almost puzzle like encounter design.
Yeah. The game has a really good progression, like a lot of these your goal would be with a game like this is to kind of dole out the abilities and the kind of skill tests really carefully, one piece at a time. And so it leads to this kind of mirror of your kind of move up the tower, right? So you start off really deep in the depths of the tower, and everything is really plain and very industrial. Like everything is like the inside of a factory that only makes panels that are specifically designed to be run upon, right?
Yep.
And so you start off with that, and it's really at the start trying to get you used to the wall running, giving you really good, careful, kind of easy encounters with the enemies so that you can get familiar with the kind of level of challenge that they present. And then as you progress, they start to really layer in different things that you're doing. Like one thing I remember is I really hadn't engaged with the crouch. There's a crouch ability. If you crouch while moving on a downhill slope, you get a slide. And the slide really lets you build momentum. So there's a certain point in the game where they decide, okay, this is the level where we're going to test you on the slide. And every level, especially early on, every level really felt like this, where it felt like this is a segment that is designed to test this one specific piece of your kit. So we're going to put you on a big downward slant. We're going to have kind of murder grinders that if you're standing up are going to kill you. And then
Why
we're
are
gonna
all
make
these
you-
walls lit up with electricity? Well, it's such
Yeah,
a hazard for like
Bad maintenance, man.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah. And so as they continue to as they give you new abilities, this game actually seems really stingy with the abilities as it doles them out. But I like it. I like the way that it doles them out very specifically in time with the level design. They don't give you an ability like the tether that lets you do kind of big jumps off of these tether points. They don't give you that and then say like, okay, we're going to give you a level that now has tethers on top of everything else that you've seen. They're going to spend a while with you using that tether in very specific situations and really testing you on the tether. And then they start to mix in some other things. It's very, very deliberate. The levels are really built really well in this way. And like I mentioned, it like kind of mirrors you're working your way up the tower. Until about halfway through the game, the levels, because of the kind of industrial nature of the design, and it's like very, cyberpunk factory is the vibe that you're getting for basically the first half of the game. It's really weird when you start getting up into the city area and you start seeing these much more detailed environments. Like the first half of the game, the levels actually look very bland, and it's spiced up a little bit. There's your classic like what is a cyberpunk game if you don't have a poster telling you to like obey the overseer on every wall, right? My favorite one, I wish I'd gotten a screenshot of this, was an advertisement for salted roaches. That was great. But yeah, so
I didn't see that.
Yeah, there are a lot of, honestly, the little details in this game. Like, I think a lot of that stuff might get stripped out if you're playing on console, but on the PC, like the environments, you barely see it because you're moving really fast, but they're actually pretty detailed. And then once you get up to that city level, you have a lot of tools at your disposal. Probably like 75% of what you're going to get throughout the game is with you by then. And then they put you into these environments that are just full of visual noise and test you on a lot of different things at once. And like you're going to be, going from tether jump to wall run, to slide dash, to killing different guys with like various different, they start to introduce different enemies as well. Like the enemies are really a part of this. They introduce them very slowly and very intentionally. They don't just have a bunch of different kind of guys that shoot at you. They have 2 guys with guns. They have a guy with a sword. They have a thing that shoots big waves. Like there's a list. I think there's maybe like 7 to 10 different enemy types in the game. I might even be being a little extra generous there, but each one of them is really specifically used and really integrated into the environment in a good way. If there's a complaint I have about that, it's that a lot of the enemy placement and environment design often feels more like an obstacle course than it does like a real space. But for this game, that I don't really have a big complaint about that. It really is an obstacle course fundamentally. Mm-hmm. The design of the enemies is a little bit bland, but they do really kind of start to broaden out as you go. Like the enemies really feel like a part of the level design more so than like something with AI. They really are just like, here's a thing that if it sees you, kills you, and it's going to sit right here and look around and try and find you and kill you. They're not out there like scouting their way through the levels. You can't like kite them around. They're basically a spot in the level that you have to hit with a sword. But like on the whole, every level really just gives you like, just get to the next checkpoint. Like what's it going to take for you to get to the next checkpoint? It is a puzzle for you to figure out. And the checkpoints are incredibly close together. It's like one room at a time. You have to make your way through this.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit because so the checkpointing I think is very good. I have one complaint, and it also is very much tied to something that I think is very good about the game. So take these together. But one thing that's very strange about this game is the way that it's structured. It's broken up into chapters. There's 17 chapters, each of which has a bunch of checkpoints throughout it. So these checkpoints, if you were playing through without restarting, dying, etc., we'd be talking about like 2 minutes max, probably less between most of the checkpoints. But of course, at any given checkpoint, you might get stuck and be dying again and again and again and again and again. The chapters, there's no saving within a chapter. So if you exit the game, now on consoles where you can suspend the game, this is probably less of an issue, but I played on PC. If you exit the game during a chapter, then you come back in and you have to restart the chapter, not from the checkpoint that you were on when you left the game, which kind of sucked because, like, for example, last night I was on one of the first levels that is when you first get to Dharma City. The game opens up. There's a lot more complex situations. It's pretty hard. It's a pretty hard level or chapter. And what turned out to be the very last checkpoint of the game, it was like 12:30. I really wanted to go to bed. But I was on this checkpoint where just like it's a ton of enemies. It's a pretty large area, and I just could not hack it. And finally, I was like, I give up. I'm going to bed. Went back to it today. And of course, because of the way the checkpointing works, I had to play that entire chapter again from the beginning in order to get back to that spot. And then found out, of course, that I was like at the end of the chapter. I beat that one checkpoint that I was on, and boom, I was on, it saved my progress. I was on to the next chapter, which is a little bit irritating. I really would like, even if it was just sort of a manual save or something, it's like, let me save in the middle of these chapters, because these chapters, at least for me, dying 100, 120, 130 times in some of these chapters.
I had one chapter with over 200 deaths.
Right. So like, and we're talking about across some of the chapters took me an hour, and maybe longer. And so it's pretty frustrating to not be able to save in the middle of that. On the reverse side of that, though, that did mean that there were at least 2 or 3 times where I had to play a chapter that I'd already largely played from the beginning. And in every case, I freaking steamrolled it. I was like, places where I had died like 50 times trying to get this one jump just right, or get this one kill just right, or times just right. I could do it in 2 or 3, 5, maybe 6 tries. After being able to do it once, it's amazing. Yeah. It made me feel like a god, because it was like, wow, like this was so hard, and then suddenly it's easy because you just sort of unlock it. It's amazing.
That's what makes these games so satisfying. That mastery element. Mm-hmm. It doesn't change from the first time you came to it to the time you finally beat it. It's just you got better.
Yeah. And you figured out, so like,
satisfying.
Okay, for the first few times, it's always just about figuring out what approach is going to work, right?
Yeah. What's the best path?
Need to, of these 3 guys, I need to go after this one first, then that one, because otherwise this guy's going to shoot me from this angle, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's just a matter of like that sort of trying and iterating and trying different things until you figure out like what's the best approach here. But there is just a mastery side of it where it's like, I started really feeling confident about this game. I haven't beat it yet, but like there's some moments in this game where so many moments in this game where you look at a challenge it's presenting you with, and it's like, this is impossible and I am going to give up. And then you do it and it works and it's amazing. I'm thinking about there's a mid-game moment.
Can I just say one thing before you get off of that?
Yeah.
The biggest reason, in my opinion, that it's so much easier to replay these levels than it is to play them the first time is that they're designed in a way that you cannot safely explore the spaces at all until everyone is dead. When you are replaying the level, you will never be surprised by an enemy in a blind corner. But the first time you're playing it, over and over and over again, what's going to happen is you're going to get a little bit farther than you did the first time, and then something is going to surprise you. Some new challenge that requires quick action, or maybe like a jump that you have to be angled just
Yeah,
right.
just something that breaks your momentum.
Exactly. And if anything breaks your momentum in this game, any enemy that's in that room is going to shoot you dead.
So I was talking about like moments that like feel impossible. Shane, I think you and I both were kind of peeing ourselves at the sort of mid-game. I don't necessarily want to call it a boss, although it felt like one. There's this elevator shaft that you get to that is the center of the massive elevator shaft is a tower of rotating rings covered in lasers. And you have to climb this elevator shaft while avoiding the literally hundreds of deadly lasers spinning in various different directions and at various different speeds.
Don't you guys have one of these in your apartment building? This sounds totally normal.
Oh man,
this is such a hilarious moment because you see this thing and like I was getting towards the end of my play session at the end of the night, and I just saw this thing. I was like, "Oh, fuck no!" This is not
I was like, "No!" Same exact thing. I saw it, and I was like, "Quit game, close game, go to bed. I'll try this another time." Oh my god, it was so hard, but it felt so rewarding to get it.
Shane, you just reminded me of something. One of my favorite things in this game. So all the enemies have standard enemy things that they say, as you're like,
he's here.
All of that. But like a third of the time, at least a lot of the early ones, I don't know how they changed later in the game, but like a third of the time when they get you at the beginning, they just go, fuck you.
Yeah, I loved that.
All right,
because like, you know what, it's honest.
Yeah, it is. You just killed
man.
So many of their friends.
If that spinning tower of lasers could talk, it would just be saying "fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you." Fuck
yeah.
You.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning about that spinning tower of lasers. There is no such thing in this game as non-lethal damage. Like, any damage that's dealt to you by anything is going to kill you instantly, and you'll have to restart from the checkpoint. And this, for people who are playing this, when you do get to this gigantic tower of lasers, which I guess I should give the in-fiction explanation, it's the city is trying to wipe out and murder the people in the Undercity, I guess, and they have sent this like device down this elevator shaft, and you're trying to get up the elevator shaft, but anyway, the thing is basically a giant cylinder in the middle of this giant circular room. Spaced around the outside edges of the room are kind of little runnable wall panels and the kind of grapple points. This one requires so much of you in order to complete it. In order to get through, each checkpoint of this, and there are, I think, 3 checkpoints as you go through this. You're going to have to be very aware of where the grapple points are above you at any given time. You're going to have to be able to both jump over and duck under lasers anytime you manage to find a place to stand still. And you're going to have to always, always, always be moving and be very aware of, like, what lasers are where, what lasers are about to be where, how fast you can go if you pull yourself with a grapple point, like, to avoid, like, grappling yourself right into one of the lasers. And once you get to the top of this thing, I thought, yes, I've got it. You get to the top, you cut one of its support cables, it falls, you fall, now you do it again.
You have to climb it again.
And now it has added shockwaves that go up the wall so that you have to not only be dodging all these lasers, now you
Climb
basically
the walls,
can't
but this
do
time the
wall
walls are
running.
lava. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah,
Fuck you,
intermittently the walls become lava, so you have to leap off of the walls to dodge the shockwaves and then dash back onto the walls. So you have to be able to literally not just wall run, but jump off of the wall run and land back into a wall run. This, I think, is the hardest part of the game for sure. It was very satisfying to finish.
I was going to say, but when you do it, this all sounds crazy, but when you do it, It's awesome.
It was very, very awesome. So I think we've talked about enough of the like finer points of this game. I just want to wrap up by saying like I was very, very, very impressed with this for what is essentially like a I would say this like a AA kind of game. Like this is a I think $30 game or $40 game, not like a full price game, and it is from a relatively small team out of Poland that has put together something that is like ridiculously polished, like visually incredibly polished, game design really, really polished, and it's in terms of like meatiness of like how much game there is here. It is a little longer than what we usually do for this show. It's probably shorter than if Ubisoft was putting this thing out, they would have padded it out with an extra 20 hours of who knows what. But this game is 100% all killer, no filler. And it's probably about 15 hours for most people. If you're, like me, although it's,
can I just say, we rely really heavily on a site called, How Long to Beat. How Long to Beat is, it's a site where people can put in what games they're playing, how long they take to finish. And they break it up into ratings like, what if you're doing just the main story, if you're doing the main story plus extras, if you're a completionist, etc. And right now, the rating for the main story on this game is 6.5 hours by over 3, and that's the average of over 350 people who have reported their playtime. So,
who are these people? Are they Ghostrunners themselves?
Reagan, you know who they are? Liars.
Liars.
Probably so.
Dirty liars.
Yeah.
I looked up because there was a point where I was stuck on something and I just simply couldn't figure out which way to go. I looked up a no commentary let's play, and it was not a totally deathless let's play, but like a very low deaths playthrough where this person had clearly played the game several times before and got through most of the sections of the game without dying. And it is 2.5 hours long. And so that gives me a real sense of like how much of the time, the variability on the like playtime on this is 100% on you and your stubby meaty fingers and how quickly you can like, grok what's going on in each of these zones. It's very much about like, for me, this is probably a 15-hour game. I'm very sure there are people who beat this game in 6 hours. I'm sure there are people who will take 25 or 30. But up to you. But I would say even if it takes you 30, I don't think that's like a problem with this game.
You do suck though.
Yeah, get wrecked.
I will say, Reagan, something you just mentioned. There were a couple times that I got like I didn't know where to go next. And part of me thinks that's just like I didn't know if it was just me because just me or if it was like the game. So hearing you also getting stuck at least once, I think it's just like the world is so vibrant and cluttered. It was kind of hard for me to tell exactly.
Did you notice just
direction.
How many arrows are printed on walls, floors, signs, etc. Though, like this game is like really, really interested in knowing like if you finished a section and you're wondering where the exit is to go on to the next section, look around and you'll find like I don't know like a sign advertising like freeze-dried fish, and it's got a great big arrow on it for no particular reason. That's the direction you should be going. This game is just like absolutely just chock full of arrow iconography on every surface, and they are always pointing you to the exit, which I thought was like a really clever and interesting thing that like you notice it when you're like hunting for the exit, but like there's really subtle arrows all over the place too that are this game, it also does this thing where it's like, you can grab onto this edge because there's a yellow thing draping over the edge to kind of remind you that there's a place you can grab here, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's always helpful.
But
I was never like lost to the degree that I was like, oh God, where do I go? But just like, it's just a jarring feeling when like, for the majority, you have no doubt where to go because it's like there's guys shooting at me and I know I need to go to where they are to kill them. So then like the dust settles and you're like, okay, where the hell am I and where do I go?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Well, that's when you look for those glowing arrows on all over
That's
everything.
that's good.
It's great.
That's good.
So yeah, this game is available also on. We didn't talk about this. This game is available on pretty much everything. This is another side of this that I think is a real technical accomplishment. So I play this game on PC, where it looks every bit like a AAA game. It's using a lot of like fancy NVIDIA RTX technologies. Like, for example, this game supports DLSS and has a bunch of like high-end graphics stuff. It'll do
Gorgeous.
High frame rates. It'll do high resolutions. And I think it'll also scale down pretty gracefully to other systems. Like if you have a potato PC, or you haven't gotten your hands on the hot new graphics card yet or anything, I think this will still run really, really well, because it also runs on the Nintendo Switch. They've ported this to all of the platforms. It's on PlayStation 4 and 5 and Xbox One and Series X, and also on Nintendo Switch. And I've looked up.
I'm looking right now. Yeah, I'm looking right now at some video of it running on a Nintendo Switch, 720p, but 60 FPS. And it actually does not look all that different from the PC version in terms of just what you're actually looking at. The levels are a little bit less cluttered with junk. I'm noticing that the enemies do not explode in a shower of blood in the way that they did for me on PC. I don't know if that's a Nintendo thing.
Well, then why even? Why even?
Yeah, but like the lighting obviously is a little bit less fancy, but it still reads, and they still have that instant restart that you get. So I think really all the important stuff seems to have really made a good transition here to the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I think from a just straight up technical level, this game is extremely, extremely well put together across all of its platforms, as far as I'm able to tell.
Yeah, I played on PS4, which was nice. I haven't played a game on my PS4 for quite a while. It's basically been my Overwatch machine for like a year and a half, because I play almost exclusively everything on Switch now. But I was like, this game feels like a PlayStation game, not a Switch game to me.
Yeah. I kind of wish you'd play the Switch version, because I want to know more about how well it runs. But I think it seems like it's probably still a good bet even on Switch. One other thing, while we're talking about the different platforms, is that I wanted to call out how it has a pretty unique control scheme. I played on PC.
That's what I was going to.
I played this on PC, and initially I tried this with a mouse and keyboard. And I think Shane played mostly on mouse and keyboard. Initially,
yes, I did.
That did not quite jive for me. Something about things like doing the dash and things just didn't quite work in my brain for mouse and keyboard. So I switched up and grabbed a controller. And this has a really unusual control scheme that I think is really intentional and well thought out for this type of game that it is. In the settings, it calls it the bumper jumper control scheme. You have some other options you can choose from, but the default is bumper jumper, which means that like the R1, R2, or the bumper or buttons on your, those are your jump. And later, what is the L1 one again? The left one?
Dash.
No,
Dash.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. Whereas the sword swipe goes to your R2, your right trigger, and the left trigger is used for other abilities you get later. And that basically means that you never have to take your thumbs off of the sticks while playing. Everything is done with the sticks and the bumpers and triggers, and you never have to touch the face buttons. And you only need to touch the D-pad. Actually, you touch the face button to restart. And you use the D-pad to select between a variety of different little abilities. But that's usually something that you're going to pick once and then leave it set to for usually a long time. So you're basically never taking your fingers off of the sticks, which is really, really good for a very fast action game like this.
For my controls, like I said, I did play on mouse and keyboard. One thing I found really nice was I have a couple of extra buttons on my mouse, and I mapped the dash and crouch onto those. And so I basically only had to use the keyboard for like WASD to move. The game actually plays almost completely with just those buttons. And personally, I really think the game benefits from having the precision of the mouse, but more than the precision, it's the speed of being able to like turn around. That was the main thing that kept me using the mouse rather than the gamepad, which I'm actually usually a lot more confident with. It really pays off to be able to rotate around really quickly in this game, especially when you are doing the midair dashes. So, I think this is a game that if you can play it on PC, it's going to look great, but it seems to work really well on all platforms, and it seems to have a lot of customizability to the controls, so you're probably going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that I went to this on PS4 for was because that's where I've played most of my first-person games, and the bumper controls felt really comfortable because that is also... I talked about Overwatch a moment ago, and if you play a lot with a control in Overwatch, characters like Lucio, or as you mentioned before, Shane, Genji, if you really want to play those characters well, you've probably already mapped your controller to do the same thing where you're never taking your thumbs off the sticks because you need to have that like full constant 360 degree view, which I thought was cool that this game was just like, we're just going to do that right out of the gates. Like, that's just what this game is. It's
Bumper Jumper Lucio is super good, by the way.
It's the best way. It just makes it so much faster and easier to control.
Yeah, this game almost sold me on picking up one of those controllers that has the paddles on the bottom. I played this, and I've been very, very happy lately, by the way, with the Xbox One controller. It's what I mostly use with my PC. But it made me almost think like, maybe I should get one of those like fancy Elite controllers with the fancy paddles on the bottom. Maybe other games would feel like this, but probably not. But it's very, very cool. So anything left to say about Ghostrunner?
This game is cool. Check it out.
Not a lot, yeah.
Oh, there's a demo?
I honestly can't think of a game that's like this that we've covered.
There's a demo on both on consoles and on PC. So I got this on the Epic Game Store. You can get a demo there. There's even a demo on the Switch. So if you're not sure, like, hey, how will this play on Switch versus PC or versus my PS4 or whatever, download the demo on both and check it out, I guess. I didn't do that, but you could, and you can let us know what you think. So if you play this and you have an experience, like, for example, if you play this on the Switch, I'm really curious about that version. Let us know. And if you do want to let us know, you can find us on the internet at www.theshortgame.net, which is where you'll find our contact form, great way to reach us, and also links to our Patreon, patreon.com/theshortgame, where you can, if you support us at even $1 a month, you'll get instant access to our Discord, which is where we are chatting about the games that we are playing. Next week, by the way, we're covering Loop Hero, which is really good. We for technical reasons, we were going to cover that this week, but for technical reasons, we had to bump it. But it's really good.
Now we're back in my world.
Yeah,
now we're back in my world.
This is a Nate game. So if you're playing along at home, check out Loop Hero. It's brand new from publisher Devolver, and I forget the name of the developer, and it's really, really neat on Mac and PC. And let's see. You can also find our show on Twitter at _shortgame. Or you can find me on Twitter at RayganK. That's RayGanK. And Nate, where can people find you?
On Twitter at NateSTL.
And Shane, where can people find you?
On Twitter at 8BitShane.
And listeners, thank you once again for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.